Well, hey there, Thrashers and Thrashettes. Hope your faces are still attached to your skulls, because today we're going to be listening to FM Face Melters! Here on VGMporium. I'm going to be your co-host, Scuzzy, and I'm going to hand it over to Rage Cage for all the talking.
Thank you, Scuzzy. Yeah, hello there, folks. So yeah, as he had mentioned, we're listening to FM Face Melters today. And yeah, Scuzzy kind of helped to curate this one today for me. And don't worry, he's not as much of a scuzz as his name would lead you to believe. And he doesn't care much for talking to folks, but he does enjoy announcing songs and their people who made them. So, I don't know. Everybody has their quirks. And if you remember, as I alluded to in the previous episode, that we're going to be continuing on this FM train. You know, we listened to some of the funkiest FM tunes, and now we're going to be listening to some of the most thrashingest, bashingest, eardrum throttling, perhaps. Because as we know, FM can make some really screechy, squealy sounds, but when handled correctly, it can be truly an awesome experience to behold. Case in point, this track. So tell us, Scuzzy, what is this that we came in on?
We're starting this ear-boiling show with the opening theme from the unreleased Sega Mega Drive game Ninja Gaiden. Have no idea who made this, but whoever it was is a goddamn thrashing madman.
Well, as Scuzz said, this is an unreleased Mega Drive game. From what I can read, was fully developed, but was just canceled with no reasons given. And yeah, it's unlike the NES versions of Ninja Gaiden. This was based off the arcade version, which was more of a beat 'em up. There was also a Sega Master System and a Game Gear versions of this game, but they're also slightly different from each other, and they do have composers identified, whereas this one does not. Though there are some stylistic clues in here that I am taking a guess at who it is, but I'm not going to say it here because that's going to be an entirely different episode. But what I will tell you is that this sounds very much unlike anything else I've heard on the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis. I mean, just the use of like the patches and then the percussion itself, which is a combination of the noise and PSG of the SN76489. Just like, I mean, listen to that. It's like that. I don't know how to, I've tried to figure out how to recreate that in Diplomask, and so far I've been unsuccessful. Maybe someday I'll figure it out. And as for the rest of the soundtrack, there are some tracks in here that would fit in with its cousins on the NES, but then there's some that are just like, really some good groovy funk, some that are a little bit more rockin', a little gut bucket, some that are just a little odd. So it's really all over the place, just soundtrack. And I would suggest you go find the VGM or find it on YouTube as a rip and just listen to it, because it's just it's an experience. And now let's continue on this experience. Tell us, Scuzzy, what you got up next for us?
Oh yeah, I got you Queen Dia from Gunmasters on the arcade, composed by Famishin, Shadow, and Mav. That was some royal headbanging. That was Queen Dia from Gunmasters, composed by Maz, Shadow, and Famishin. But judging how hard this track goes, I wouldn't want to be on this high lady's bad side.
Indeed. This track just doesn't give you a moment to breathe. It's just going from fast to faster, more chaos to chaotic, which is fitting for a final boss. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have much information on the composers of this track except for one, so for Shadow and Maz, I couldn't find anything. I tried looking it up, and, for Shadow, I got things like, just general Shadow VGM, or I tried looking up Shadow Gunmasters, and I just got things for, like, guns called Shadow, actual guns that I want to buy a gun. And then Maz, nothing, blank. I can't even find, then this is the only game I could find credited to his name on VGM Rips, or their name. And as for Famishin, I did find something. I'm not sure if it's the, this Famishin or if it's a different Famishin, but, it was on VGMDB, so I'm going to go with it. Looks like they did a lot of arrangements and compositions for a lot of anime girl, like idol girl album type things. I'm not too familiar with all that. And then I did find some game credits. There was Bomberman War, Tenshin Ranman, Amero Islenauts, and Parquet, which is the most recent one I saw, which was 2021. So, that's what I got for you on those guys. And or gals. Now, what I have more info on is this game. So, Gunmasters. It was created by Metro Corp. And it's basically, you could say loosely inspired by Gunstar Heroes. It's kind of like that, kind of crazy, fast-paced shooting action, like side-scrolling, just guns all over the place, and kind of a little boss rushy, a little before Alien Soldier times, but, it's that kind of same concept. And yeah, it's just a lot of nice, really big, beautiful sprites and really cool sprite work all around. The backgrounds are nice looking. All the music for the soundtrack is actually pretty good too. And in case you're wondering, yes, Queen Dia is the big bad for this game, or I should say the kind of like the form before the big bad, because like once you beat her, I guess there's an even bigger bad that comes out that was possessing her or something, and then you fight that, and then at the very end there's like all the bosses that you fought before join you to help take down this bigger bad. I don't know, it's some wacky times, it's what can you expect from the arcade in the mid-90s. So now, hey Scuzzy, what do you got next for us?
Well, speaking of big bads, this next track is the theme for Lord Valgasu from the game Fighting Masters, made by Masaki Kase and Hiromitsu Shioya. That shredder was Lord Valgasu from Fighting Masters by Hiromitsu Shioya and Masaki Kase.
Huh. It also says here in the notes that it's the theme for the story as well.
My bad.
All good, Scuzz. Wish I could say the same about this game. It looks like it has two different stories. One is that it is a fighting tournament set up in a pre-apocalyptic universe by this race called the Primaries, and there's one of each race that fighting on this one planet to gain their favor so that they will be given a new galaxy to live in while the rest die in the big ol' red sun explosion. And that is the story given in the manual. But the in-game story is totally different. Whereas there's a demon lord known as Lord Valgasu, this track is for, and he leads an underground campaign for the against the 12-star galaxy. So you're basically playing as one of these other, parts of this 12-star galaxy to take on Valgasu and stop his evil, crazy plan, whatever he wants, so he doesn't enslave the rest of the worlds. It gets pretty wacky there, And the wackiness continues. So here's some of the cast that you get to fight as. So you got Flamer, a kickboxing horse. What is this? Dio, a sentient man-eating plant. You got Goldrock, a golem with an Egyptian motif. You got Zrygunt, a lobster man. And Larry. Good old Larry. Would you believe that some of the team that helped work on this game eventually went on to make EVO, Search for Eden, that weird evolutionary RPG game on the SNES? Truly, truly a wacky world. Speaking of makers, let's get into those composers. So, Masaki Kase, they've did Viewpoint, Irritating Stick, Samurai Showdown on the Neo Geo Pocket, and Beat Mania, the sound of Tokyo. They've contributed a couple tracks of that. And up next, Hiromitsu Shioya. They did Aerostar on the Game Boy, Cosmic Carnage, which is also a game similar to this in concept, WWE SmackDown versus Raw 2006, and finally Project Sylphid. So Scuzz, what are you going to boil our brains with next?
Oh yeah, this next track, man, you better be ready. It's gonna crush your cranium. This is stages 2-1 and 5-2 from Arrowflash by Hanauri Musume. Hey! 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 Is your synaptic still snapping? Do something! Oh yeah, okay. That track that nearly obliterated your oblongata was Stages 2-1 and 5-2 from Arrowflash by Hanauri Musume.
Thank you, Scuzzy. Oh yes, I enjoyed this one very much. This actually reminds me of the music that a lot of my friends play, just like that all over the place math rock, just all over the place. Time changes and like riffs just going on here and there, constant repetitions and just craziness, and it's awesome. And then, yeah, they've all been collectively playing for these last like 15, almost 20 years, just on and off in different bands, and there's been different permutations, but all in all, it's just been like just this really awesome, cool math rock stuff, and this is what this makes me think of. I think my favorite bit is like when it kind of goes into that really like kind of slower, kind of more chilled out part, kind of lulls you into feeling like, okay, this is going to be getting a little easier, and all of a sudden, bam, it just hits you with that last bit before it loops back into the beginning. It's just, ooh, such a fun time. And I wish I could tell you what other fun times that Hanauri Musume has made for us, but this is the only credit I can find for them, and I've looked them up, and other people come up and not composers things, so can't do much about that unless somebody else who's listening knows what else they've done. But you can just shoot me an email at VGMporium@gmail.com. So to tell you about this game with this crazy ass music, it's a horizontal scrolling shmup, and you control a ship that can either change between like an actual craft like ship thing or into a mech, and depending on which mode you're in, you get like different weapon styles. And each of these different weapons can be upgraded by collecting, power-ups throughout, and then you can also get smaller crafts that go around you and emulate, copy the attacks that you have at that time. And you also have your powerful attack, your screen clearer, which is like where the game gets its title, the Arrowflash. And depending on, you can have it in two modes. You can either have it stock mode, where you can have limited amounts you can use, or you can have charge mode, where you actually charge it up, but it's not as strong. But you can use it infinitely. And as to the story, there's not much. The protagonist is a female pilot, Zana Keen, or Starna Oval, depending on which region that you're in, and just fights aliens. And the game has a lot of references to Gundam and Macross, of course. And I'm gonna tell you the truth here. I haven't actually played any of these games that that we featured here so far, but I can say that I have played the next one that is coming up. So what is it next that you got for us, Scuzz?
Well, I hope you like metal and mechs, cause if you do, this one's gonna knock your socks off, and your face may well just join them on the ground. This next one is called Stratospheric Struggle, from Musha Aleste, by Toshiaki Sakoda. oh man, those were some tasty licks. That was Stratospheric Struggle from Musha Aleste by Toshiaki Sakoda. And I bet you're struggling to keep consciousness right now. But heads up! Here comes Rage Cage with some facts.
Yes, facts. Here's a fact. In Japan, this was called Musha Aleste Full Metal Fighter Eleanor. But here in the good old US of A, it was called simply Musha, which was an acronym for Metallic Uniframe Super Hybrid Armor. And this game was originally going to be a port of the game Aleste 2, which was originally released on the MSX, I believe, but it ended up being turned into its own game. Whereas the previous two games were just like standard shoot 'em ups, like in a standard sci-fi setting. The second one had you fighting like biomechanical craziness. This game, Musha Aleste, it has a very much Japanese style and setting. It's still in that future time. It's actually has the same character from Aleste 2, Eleanor. We know her as Terry in the States, and I'm guessing it's kind of like a alternate story or something. But yeah, you're going through fighting these things that are all just inspired by like Japanese folklore, monsters, yokai. I mean, the first boss is a giant mobile pagoda fortress that's just constantly shooting at you. I think if I remember correctly, it shoots a giant beam at you every once in a while, and yeah, you destroy that, and then you go inside, and that's the next stage. And one of the other big differences is that instead of flying a craft, like a fighter jet thing, you're piloting a mech. And I played the hell out of this game. I mean, I just had so much fun with it. Just the action was non-stop. The music is just so hard-hitting and doesn't let up at all. And speaking of the music, the composer Toshiaki Sakoda, they did music for the previous game Aleste 2 on the MSX. They also did music for Devil's Crush, which was a pinball game on the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16, which was, I guess, is a really, really good one that inspired the most recent, I think a few years ago came out, Demon's Tilt. Puyo Puyo also on the MSX. Treasure Hunter G on the Super Famicom. And I think the last one I found was Riviera, The Promised Land on the PSP. Now I want to get a little bit more into this music here. So, like from the beginning, as soon as you start the game, it just doesn't let up. It's just this crazy, speedy, symphonic metal madness that just propels you through each stage. And I think there's only like one track in this entire soundtrack that is actually like really calm, and that is I think the track that plays at the end of the game, which of course is appropriate. It's another fine example of when a composer knows how to work with that YM2612, you can get some pretty stellar results. And I personally think that a lot of this music can go toe to toe with actual like metal music. And there was also a follow-up to this game. It was actually the last game in the Aleste series, other than a couple of Game Gear releases, called Robo Aleste. And it's not set in the same time frame. It's actually set in feudal Japan, and the premise is, what if mechs in feudal Japan? And that's what you get. Though the soundtrack on that one is actually it's a Red Book Audio, and it's more of a house kind of sound with some traditional Japanese musical elements in there. So it's a kind of an interesting listen. And with that, I think it's about time to wrap things up here. I'd like to thank Scuzzy for joining us on this little journey through some face-melting madness. You have anything else you want to say to these folks? Scuzzy? Oh, where'd you go? Oh. I guess he took off after that last bit. Well, I can at least say that I'm glad that he stuck around for as long as he did. He's not very much for people, as I mentioned before. Guess I'm closing up shop by myself again. Well, thank you for listening to VGMporium, Video Game Music and More podcast. You can find it on all your favorite podcatchers, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher. Have it set up on Facebook as well. And then, you can find it on all those social medias, Twitter, Instagram. And then, I've been your host, Rage Cage, and you can find me on a lot of those same social medias as well. And so now, I believe the next episode we're gonna do here is gonna be a little bit more on the easygoing side. You know, we've been listening to so much high energy, frantic, crazy stuff this last few episodes. And, you know, I think it's time to kind of just calm it down, relax, just take it easy. Though it is a bit silly to kind of say this over this crazy shredding right here, but, you know, that's what's gonna be. Oh, and before you do go, you want to make sure that you didn't forget your face someplace on the floor here.